There was a lot of hype and just as much controversy going into the release of the Nintendo Switch 2, especially around the price of the console. But is it worth the hype and the price? That's what I'm here to discuss today as a regular consumer with a YouTube channel. If you like this review or found it helpful, feel free to subscribe. Over the Switch 2's life, I'm going to review a lot of the big titles, alongside my regular output of reviews and video essays on movies, games, and television. If you have any questions about the Switch 2 that I didn't cover here, feel free to comment down below. I'll do my best to look into the question so I can give a good reply, because that is really my goal with this video, to answer people's questions. I was personally a big fan of the Switch throughout its life. While I have my problem with business decisions Nintendo has made over the last 7 years, I think their creative output has been insane. Zelda, Mario, Metroid, Smash, Fire Emblem, and Xenoblade all had some of, if not their best games on the Switch, alongside some solid third-party support from companies whose games I enjoy, like Square Enix, and a really solid indie output. The Switch just became a great home for smaller games. So I was excited for the Switch 2, not because I was expecting it to be a huge change in how we play Nintendo games, like what is usually the case for hardware jumps, because the size of the hardware jump is enough to allow devs to do a lot of things that they couldn't do on the Switch 1. It would be nice if it was a bigger jump in power, mostly for third-party games, but I think it's good enough for the scope of games that Nintendo makes. That being said, there was nothing around this launch that made it a 100% day one purchase for me. The lineup was fine, some good remasters and some solid third-party ports. Like, I am genuinely surprised that Cyberpunk is even remotely playable on this thing. Mario Kart World is the big pull. As much as I love the series, it isn't the system seller for me that something like Zelda is. I honestly would have been fine if I didn't get my pre-order, unlike my Switch 1, because nothing was stopping me from playing Breath of the Wild on this thing at launch. I think the Switch 2 launch titles are overall better than the Switch 1's, but the lack of a generational game like Breath of the Wild makes it feel worse. Unpacking consoles and tech in general is something I weirdly enjoy. I'm a sucker for presentation when it comes to opening boxes. I still really liked how the Xbox Series X is packaged. The Switch 2 is very similar to the first one, where you're greeted with the console upon opening the box. The setup process went by fairly smoothly too, except for the part where I had to wait for my Switch 1 to charge because the battery was very dead. So if you haven't used your Switch 1 in a while, I highly recommend charging it before you pick up the Switch 2. The data transfer itself went by smoothly as well. It's the first time I've transferred a console's data from the previous system to its successor. When I got my PS5, I didn't do it because I told myself I would still use my PS4 to play last gen games and save the PS5 storage space for current gen games. I've turned my PS4 Pro on like 8 times since I got my PS5, and I'm pretty sure every single time it was to play Beat Saber or Tetris Effects. But with Switch games being smaller than PS5 and Xbox games, and the Switch 2 having more storage than the Switch 1, I don't see myself using this thing anymore. I have a Switch Lite, so even if I really wanted to play Switch 1 games on Switch 1, most likely playing them on this. My only issue with the data transfer is that it didn't set up the virtual cart system automatically, which would have been nice because my Switch Lite was also very dead. The last year of the Switch got the same treatment as the 3DS. It was mostly remakes of random games, so I barely used them. And when I finished the setup, the console proceeded to download every single game onto my system. So if you are going to transfer your data, get ready to cancel the download of a lot of games you've already played. There should be a toggle of what games you would want to install so your storage isn't flooded frame one. For me, the only screenshots and clips that were transferred were the ones that were saved onto the console itself. Any capture I took from after I got my SD card remained on my Switch 1. I don't know if that was because of a lack of storage or because I didn't get a micro SD for my Switch 2. The console's UI is the exact same as Switch 1, except there's a different effect highlighting menu options, some more things on the bottom row, and the eShop isn't laggy as hell. I will once again be begging Nintendo for themes during a console's life. I don't know why everyone collectively decided to stop making themes. I really liked them on my 3DS and PS4, but we just dropped them for no reason. You've had this theme tab for 8 years. Why is it just a light dark mode setting? With the console setup, let's talk about the hardware. The Joy-Con 2s are way more comfortable than their predecessor. Like, actually holding them at the same time, it's night and day. But I still wouldn't use them over a Pro controller in most situations. Even sideways, these feel more usable, which is more than I could say for the Switch 1 Joy-Cons. Like, just the size difference alone, you can tell how much more usable this controller is. I actually really like them in the grip this this time around, mostly because the magnets are really fun to mess around with. So I'm known to fidget with my controllers a lot. I don't know, I've always been a fidgety guy. During every cutscene in handheld mode or with the grips, I kept clicking the release button, and putting them in and out of the console or grips is very satisfying. Magnets are fun to mess with, alright.
Yeah, bitch! Magnets!
One of the biggest issues with the Switch 1 is the rail system. I've seen a lot of system get messed up because kids are stupid and snap the controllers right off. But with the Switch 2, that's not an issue because of the magnets. Even if you rip off the Joy-Cons sideways or pull them out directly, it's designed in a way to minimize the damage. I saw a video within launch week of someone testing this aspect of the console, and even Welcome Tour talks about how they tried to design it in a way to make it idiot-proof. And I think they accomplished that. The straps for the controllers don't change the shape of it a whole lot like with Switch 1, or provide a different way of interacting with the side buttons. They exist to make it easier to use the Joy-Cons as a mouse, and so you don't toss your controller through the TV.
Oh, jeez. And there goes the tennis racket.
The mouse I haven't used that much. I played those weird-ass minigames in Bravely Default, messed around with it in Cyberpunk for like an hour or so. It is more comfortable than I thought it was going to be, but it's still not the best. I found holding it at a slight angle instead of straight on like a regular mouse way more bearable, and my hand wasn't bothering me by the time I was done using it with Cyberpunk. Based off of my time with it, I'd rather use gyro aim. The ultimate test for me would be to use the mouse mode in Overwatch 2, as that's the only multiplayer game I know well enough to be able to speak about it in a competitive setting, but at the time of recording there isn't a Switch 2 version of it, so if that happens later on, I can talk about it in that competitive setting. One thing I really like is that they use the gyro in combination with the mouse, so if you brush your finger over the sensor, it doesn't move the mouse. It only activates the mouse mode on a system level if the controller is held in a way that the sensor is facing down. That's something I wish Cyberpunk did. CDPR, listen up. For the next update, include a controller option where it activates the mouse when the controller is facing down and the sensor is reading my desk, so I can have fun using gyro in combat and switch to mouse mode when menuing. That's how I wanted it to work and was saddened when that wasn't the case. Also, Yoshi P, if you port Final Fantasy XIV to Switch 2 and that's how the mouse works, my life is yours. Who am I kidding? I'm playing an MMO, it's already yours. But yeah, based off of my limited time with the mouse, it works fine. It isn't that bad to hold, but it still isn't the best. At some point, I do want to go to my local library and 3D print something to make it more comfortable. Maybe I'll do it when Prime 4 comes out, because that's going to be the big first-party test for the mouse. I also picked up the Pro Controller too, and I love this thing. It feels weirdly smooth and I kind of like messing with that. I fidget with my regular controllers in a very specific way, and the Pro Controller 2 is so fun to mess with. I've spent so much time doing this with the controller already. I also find the back buttons very satisfying to click. They got a good mush to it. Placement of the buttons is also very good. Sometimes with my Xbox Elite controller, I accidentally hit the paddles, but with these ones here, I don't think you can hit them by mistake with regular controller use, because it's flush with the grip. The best part about the back buttons is that you can set them per user on a per game basis. For Bravely Default, I set them to the shoulder buttons, while for Cyberpunk, I set them to jump and crouch. I love that so much. On Xbox, it's a way longer process, and I think you only have 3 or 4 presets you can make, while here it takes like 4 inputs to set it up. It feels like it's designed by people who have been using back buttons for years. They also designed it in a way where there's no creases on the handles for gamer gunk to get stuck in. The rest of the buttons are solid to click, and I like the little change that they made to the plus and minus buttons. The sticks are also amazing. They are very smooth, much like the grips. I love using them a lot. One thing I noticed right away is that the sticks don't pop up like they do on other consoles. I hope that's their way of solving stick drift, because sadly, they're not Hall effect. Same thing goes for the Joy-Con 2s. I'll let you know when they start drifting on me. I know a lot of people are mad about the C button, but I honestly don't care. Yeah, its functionality will be paywalled off soon, which does suck, but until the guy that ruined Blizzard ruins Discord, I'm not going to be using the in-system chat ever, so it's already a useless button for me despite the fact that I have NSL, and you can rebind it. Honestly, I bound it to screenshot to have that feature on the right Joy-Con. I don't know what I'm going to do with it on the Pro Controller though. Honestly, the main reason why I think I don't hate it is because I doubt it's increasing the price of the controllers like at all, but if it did raise the price by a decent amount, then it's annoying. My biggest issue with the Pro Controller 2 at the time of recording is that I can't get this thing to connect to my PC. I don't know if this is the controller's fault, Windows' fault, or Steam's fault, but one of the reasons why I was so excited for this controller was so I can get one with gyro and back buttons. That didn't cost over $300 Canadian after tax. This only cost half of that. God, video games are so expensive now. Like, I stopped playing Doom the Dark Ages so I could finish it with this controller. So the sooner I can use it on PC without having to install something off of GitHub, the better. My only hope with the controller when it inevitably gets Steam support is that I can bind the back buttons to whatever, and they don't just default to whatever I have them set on the Switch. Funny enough, when it comes to this controller and competitive games, I'm in the exact same boat as the mouse feature on the Joy-Cons. I already know Overwatch 2 is going to be my main competitive use with this controller, and I just have to wait until this controller works on PC so I can use it in that game at a frame rate I normally play at. But yeah, the Switch 1 Pro controller was my favorite controller from last gen, and the Switch 2 Pro controller might be my favorite of all time, especially if the gyro on this is better than the Switch 1's and DualSense. I really like this thing. The Pro Controller 2 is the only accessory I bought outside of a screen protector that I, for the life of me, couldn't get on without a large strip. I don't know if the one I got was defective, but I'm really bad at putting on screen protectors. Like, I've been staring at the same bubbles on my Switch 1 for years. I didn't feel the need to buy the camera because I already have one for streaming, twitch.tv/someguy_Matt. And I'm not buying another camera for game modes I'm only going to play like 4 times. I didn't buy a new case because I was really betting on it fitting in the one I use for Switch 1. I got the Breath of the Wild Master Edition with the launch of the Switch 1, which you guys should know because it's been right here in every single video I filmed in this setup. And I love this Sheikah Slate case so much. I was actually super worried it wouldn't fit because the Switch 2 is decently bigger than the Switch 1, and it barely fits. It's pushing against the edges of the case, and I have to take off the Joy-Cons, but do you know what? It fits. I'll take it. Like, this is easily the best case for Switch 1, and I'm so happy I can keep using it. I did buy the wheels for the Switch 1, I think like a couple months or so into the console's life, because they are the only somewhat comfortable way to hold the Joy-Con sideways. I didn't feel the need to buy them here because I have a lot of controllers now, and all Switch 1 controllers work on Switch 2. So unless a game is specifically designed to hold a single Joy-Con, I am never using single Joy-Con ever again. Although the Switch 1 Pro controllers can't turn on the Switch 2 for some reason, and I'm going to need to buy a charging grip for the Switch 1 Joy-Cons because they can't connect to the console at all. And I think that's a good place to start talking about the actual system itself. I kind of wish it was OLED, but considering how much the console already costs, that's a price jump I do not want to pay for. It runs things decently well, both in handheld and docked. Cyberpunk runs way better than I was expecting. I actually really liked playing it in handheld mode. For some reason, the performance mode is locked behind 120 Hz monitors, which is weird because I doubt this thing is hitting 120 FPS for that game. I did have the game crash once, which out of all of the versions of Cyberpunk I have, that's the least amount of crashes. Mario Kart looks amazing and runs great until you get 3 players in, but 2 players split screen and solo is smooth as hell. Bravely Default and Yakuza 0 also run very smoothly. I would have been pissed if they didn't. And Switch 1 versions of games run well. Pokemon finally runs like a finished game. Doesn't look like it, but it runs like it. Looking at 60 FPS Breath of the Wild feels exactly like 30 FPS Ocarina of Time did on 3DS. Amazing, but it's kind of weird it's so smooth. My brain doesn't like looking at these 2 games with good frame rates. I really hope the Xenoblade games would get a free update to make them run at 60, but I imagine Monolith are the ones who made the Zelda upgrade, so it's going to take a bit for that to happen. Honestly, I've been needing to replay Tears of the Kingdom since I got the console. Getting 4 games with the console, I feel like I'm just neglecting all of them. Like, I haven't put enough time into either of the games I got with the system or the ones I want to play on Switch 2. Overall, I haven't had any real issues with games on the console. I wish Cyberpunk ran a bit better, and there are better versions of that game I own, but it's really nice having it portably, and it's fine for what it is. I'm not sure how it compares to the Steam Deck version though. That's the big test for the game. The stand on the console is also way better this time around. I actually lost the stand on my Switch 1 like 2 years ago. I have zero idea when it popped off, and I don't know where it even happened. It's fine. The stand was dog water anyways. I actually use it this time around instead of propping it up with other objects. I wish the dock had a third USB port instead of an Ethernet port. My internet is good enough that I don't really need it to make Nintendo games playable online, so if I'm using the camera and the mic, I'm out of USB ports because I don't have any USB-C plugs, which again, it's very likely I'm never using the game chat feature again until Discord dies, so I don't care that much. Speaking of game chat, it's fine. It actually removes any audio from the console being sent to other people you're in a chat in, which is huge. huge. I really wish my PC did that with Discord. And it cuts out controller noises. If you've ever played any multiplayer game on PS5, you know how annoying that can be. PS5 players mute your controller mics. The video call feature works fine, but the screen sharing is rough. It's like 15 frames and it does not look good. You're currently looking at unedited footage of the new Fast game and it is unwatchable. They need to fix this, especially because if you don't own a capture card, this is the only way to share your screen. As someone with one, I'm never using this feature. Like, no joke, if you ask me to play a game with you and you want to use a console's party chat, I'm asking if we can use Discord instead. To keep talking about features on the bottom part of the home screen, game sharing I haven't used yet, so I can't speak on what it does or how it works. I'm just happy to see download playback. Only if we got Street Pass back, man. The virtual cart feature, I love. If you have two Switches, you know how annoying it is to play downloadable games, because the console that isn't set as your home needs to be connected to the internet to launch them. The whole thing can just get annoying to deal with. But with virtual carts, you can transfer a downloaded game's rights and DLC between your consoles. I'm so happy this is a thing. It gives you the slightest bit more ownership over your digital games. Through the virtual cart system, you can lend people on your NSO family plan games, and I'm so happy that's a thing. It's going to be great for families. So siblings can split the price of games and be able to play it on their own systems. My only issue with it is that it's limited to the family plan, and you have to be in the same room to do it while connected to the internet. It's a great feature that I really wish was more flexible. You should be able to lend a game to anyone. Please give me more ownership over my digital games. At least make it so if someone isn't part of your family plan, you have to give it to them in person. But if they are a part of your plan, you can do it over the internet. This is probably the best place to start talking about the complaints, eh? I don't like the back of the dock. When I first took it off, I kind of thought I broke it because it just popped off. I wish the hole for the cables was a bit bigger. As someone who moves my dock around a lot, I kind of just leave it off because it's annoying to put on. But realistically, that's not anywhere remotely close to people's biggest complaints with the console. We gotta talk about the price. It's about $100 more than I was hoping it would be. It makes sense that it costs this much given that the Switch one never went down in price, but it is a hard pill to swallow, much like the Xbox Series X and PS5's launch prices, which have only gone up. That's why I'm kind of happy about the lack of OLED. I mostly play my Switch docked, and it being an OLED screen doesn't magically make my TV OLED. So the extra $50-$100 to make this screen OLED isn't worth it for me. The price of games have been getting insane since 2020, and Nintendo raising the prices again confirms that everyone is just going to be adding $10 to the price alongside new hardware launches until we reach the inevitable crash we're heading towards. Which is going to happen because of the ballooning development costs, by the way, not because of a $120 Mario Kart. It's like what I said in my Switch 2 Direct video. We told the industry in 2020 it's okay to raise prices. It's a frivolous protest because the only other option to play games legally on official hardware is to buy used and hope the seller is willing to take a loss. And the prices are kind of all over the place. Mario Kart is $120 after tax. I think each time I've bought Cyberpunk, I've spent $10 more on it. Bravely Default and Yakuza Zero's prices felt like somebody just threw a dart at a dartboard. Welcome Tour costs money for some reason. The Zelda games with the upgrades are insane to look at considering the games are 2 and 8 years old. Thank God they're free purchases with NSO Expansion Pass. I think that's the route that Nintendo should take with the paid upgrades. All of them should be free to own with the expansion pass, not free to use as long as you're subscribed. Funny enough, Welcome Tour has become the face of Nintendo charging too much for games. Because realistically, this should have been a pack-in title, right? No, this should not have been a pack-in title. Okay, hear me out. I actually played Welcome Tour. I didn't buy it. I borrowed it from a friend who made a really good video on it. Feel free to check it out. And it would not be a good pack-in game. It's neat if you care about learning how things are designed, but as a game, it's kinda boring. Except the Twister touchscreen minigame. I was actually really enjoying that one. And it does have some neat demos, but if you made it a pack-in game, it would invoke Wii Sports and Nintendo Land, which are actual video games. I think it should have been a free download from the store because this is an awful first impression for the Switch 2, despite being called Welcome Tour. Like, people would see it pre-installed, booted up, thinking it's going to be like Wii Sports or something, and then be bored out of their minds. Like, I didn't even finish it. I got kind of bored and stopped playing it in the last area. At the very least, it should have been a free download for NSO members, much like the Zelda upgrades. I feel like most people won't care about this game at all unless you're hardcore into Nintendo. And if you are, you probably already have NSO. I think the worst thing about this game not not being a free download is that kids who are interested in learning about tech are not going to download it because it's a very low priority purchase, even if it was free. I think the funniest thing about the prices is that it's turning everyone who covers games on the internet into economists. Because yeah, Mario Kart 8 at launch costs just as much as Mario Kart World when adjusted for inflation. Oh, and games used to cost more in the 90s, so you shouldn't feel that bad about having to pay more now. Allow me to throw my Nintendo YouTuber economist hat into the ring. The issue isn't that the number on the price tag is higher, despite the fact that if you adjust for inflation, it's the same. The issue is that everything else has gotten more expensive. Something's rising past what it would be even if you did adjust for inflation. And many's wages haven't gone up in proportion to the rising cost of living. And nobody needs video games to live, but realistically, the anger isn't just that we're paying more. It's the fact that people are getting priced out of the hobby. So yeah, games used to cost more in the 90s, but everything else didn't. Besides, it's already like the fastest selling console of all time, so clearly nobody cares, much like they didn't care in 2020. We can all complain all we want, including myself. We're still buying it. The price of things is far from the only controversy that the Switch 2 is facing. Game key cards are a big one that I'm kind of mixed on. There's already way too many Switch 1 games that didn't have the full game on the cart, and you needed to download the rest of the game. If you collect Switch 1 at all, you know how annoying it can be sometimes. The worst offender is the BioShock collection. Usually when it comes to collections on Switch 1, one game is on the cart and the others are a download code, but the BioShock collection has the first level for all 3 games on the cart and you have to download the rest of them? That's really weird. I don't know why they did it like that. Alongside that, there are way too many physical games on Switch 1 that are just an empty case with a download code. The most recent case of that happening, to my knowledge, is Marvel vs. Capcom collection exclusively in Europe. This whole thing already happening so much on Switch 1, I don't really mind the game key cards right now. How I see it is that these games would have been a partial download on Switch 1 or just an empty case with a download code anyways. Because guys, the only reason why this is happening is because companies don't want to lower their profit margins by paying for the bigger carts. Because at least with these, I can sell it on the used market or lend it to a friend. Like, go to a used game store and try to buy a Switch 1 game collection. I guarantee you the shopkeep there is going to tell you, hey, I can't confirm if this download code works or not, so you're probably only really buying Resident Evil 4 right now. So during the Switch 2's life, I think we are getting the better outcome with these. But when the Switch 2 dies, it's just as bad. My biggest fear about it is that having this branding of game key card is going to allow more companies to get away with doing this. It's funny because I've been saying for years that physical games have just become glorified keys. Like, I made a whole video about it, and now they are telling us that this is just a physical key to a digital game. This is going to lead to a future where we own even less of our games. It is also possible that the game key cards only exist because companies have been approaching Nintendo throughout the entirety of the Switch 1's life saying, hey, we're tired of spending more on these stupid carts than Blu-rays. And this is the solution Nintendo came up with. It's so over for physical games, man. The paywall button, I just can't bring myself to care about because I doubt it's raising the price in any meaningful way. Just use it as a preset button and call it a day. I think the main button issue we should be talking about is if a game doesn't use the side buttons on the Joy-Cons, I can't remap them like I can with the Switch 2 Pro controller. That's actually super dumb. Why can't I remap these if Mario Kart isn't using them? A bunch of people have reported that their Joy-Con 2s have already started drifting, but the vast majority of those instances are people not realizing that they have tilt controls on in Mario Kart. If your Joy-Cons were drifting out of the box, realistically, they probably just need to be recalibrated or you got a defect, which is very annoying. Contact Nintendo, they should help you out. There's no way you're not under warranty still. I just hope we don't run into a Joy-Con drift situation, man. On top of the ones I just talked about, there's a lot of complaints that range from bad faith, realistically, to legitimate complaints. And I think that is really important to recognize if you are partaking in bad faith criticism or not. Like, I've seen Xbox and PlayStation get away with a lot of stuff that people would rip Nintendo apart over. Like, imagine for a second if the Concord situation happened with a Nintendo game. People would be pissed that they deleted reviewers' copies off of their systems. But this also works with defending Nintendo. Like, some people will always try to defend realistically undefendable things that Nintendo has done. I don't know, I just feel like nuance gets tossed out the window when we talk about this company. It just leads to people tossing around bad faith arguments, and then other people and the company just dismiss all criticism as bad faith, and then nothing gets accomplished. Like, I saw a lot of people giving Nintendo crap because they put the console at the top of the box, and there was one GameStop in like New York or something that was stapling receipts to the front of the box, and it was piercing the screen. Yeah, I guess you can design the packaging in a way so the screen isn't facing outward, but that really feels like you're scraping the bottom of the barrel just to make a rage bait TikTok for engagement. Something similar also happened with a protective layer that's on the screen of the console. The user manual says, hey, don't remove that protective screen. If you do, immediately place a glass screen protector on it. And I saw a lot of people assuming that the tearaway plastic that usually ends up on screens wasn't supposed to be ripped off the console, and that so many people were going to accidentally do it and damage the screen. Like, it's not even worth discussing that whole thing because that's not the case whatsoever. But that was like a very dumb thing I was seeing going around when the console was about to come out, especially because I think that layer is something like every single touchscreen has. Bad faith criticism is only going to muddy the water, and it's going to cause people to overlook more prevalent complaints like the price of the system and way too many games becoming game key cards, because they're being brought up alongside those real issues. For me, I just find it frustrating when people give one company crap over a dumb thing that they're doing when they don't give the other companies crap for doing the exact same thing. Like, I don't think I'm hypocritical about giving Nintendo crap for raising the prices of games. I've been giving Microsoft and Sony a hard time for raising their prices since 2020. I'm hypocritical because I'm still buying them. So I guess to sum up the complaint section of this video, I am calling for nuanced and disgusting video games on the internet, which may as well be a waste of breath. Everyone's already made up their minds if they're attacking or defending Nintendo, and no one's changing their mind. To bring this whole thing back to the question I asked at the top of the video, is the Switch 2 worth it? Guess what? It's a nuanced answer. It depends. While the launch lineup is overall better than the Switch 1's in my opinion, that's only when you look at the games in a vacuum. Take the 4 I got as an example. A remaster of a 3DS game with new minigames. A remaster of a PS3 game with new cutscenes and some new content. A fairly impressive port of a game I already own multiple times. And oh hey, this one's new. Ugh. That sucks. So if you haven't played any of the launch games or have good hardware to run them, or just missed out on the Switch 1 entirely, yeah, the Switch 2 is worth it. I actually think it is really worth it if you missed out on the Switch 1 entirely. Have you played those games and Mario Kart doesn't grip you? No, don't get the console. Are you comfortable dropping $1,000 on a console, some games, and some accessories? No? Wait for a sale. Like, no joke, if I didn't have this YouTube channel where I talk about video games, I would have been way less likely to pick up this console at launch. The main reason why I got it is the main reason why I think everybody considering picking it up should buy it. I only expect the price to go up. It used to be as consoles got older, they got cheaper, but that time is long gone. Again, the Switch 1 never went down in price, and the other consoles this gen have only gotten more expensive. If you know you want to get it at some point, I would recommend try picking it up within the launch year, year and a half, maybe 2 years, because it will go up sooner rather than later. I don't know when it will go up in price. I'd say look up when it happened for the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and use that as a frame of reference. Other than that, if you're excited for Donkey Kong and Kirby Air Riders, or to play Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon Legends ZA on the best possible hardware, yeah, pick it up. If none or only one of those games interests you and you don't really care about playing third-party games portably, don't fall for FOMO. It's not worth it to pick up this console for one game. It is funny that I'm saying don't fall for FOMO when like 4 or 5 lines ago I was saying, hey, you should probably buy the console now before it goes up in price. So yeah, this video has gone on for long enough, so let's kick it to the outro. Again, if there's something you wanted me to talk about more when it comes to the Switch 2, feel free to leave a comment. I am making this video to answer questions people may have about the system. And if something is important to how you would use the console and I neglected to mention it here or didn't really pay that much mind to it, please leave a comment. I will do my best to give an in-depth reply. Everyone has their own way of interacting with a console, much like me with gyro controls, and I want to help you figure out if you want to buy this system or not. Do you agree? Think I'm an idiot? Comment down below. Like the video if you think I'm a Nintendo shill. Oh wait, that's probably going to be like the main reason people dislike this video. And subscribe for more content. Follow me on other platforms if you want. Take care, guys.